All right, we're good to go.
There we go. All right. Plaintiff's counsel, please go ahead and proceed with your opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor. The defendant saw the signs and they turned a blind eye. It's March 24th of 2019. A 19-year-old college student named Jessica Marks had just spent spring break visiting her best friend, Morgan Levin, in California. They went to Disneyland, the Getty Museum, went to the beach, and had caught up on everything that had happened since they had last seen each other. And on Jessica Marks's last night in California, they went to Sunny's rooftop bar. At this bar, they were served alcohol. And later that evening, Jessica Marks got into a car accident and she passed away. The establishment Sunny's rooftop bar is the defendant in today's case. The owner, Sunny Mehta, was acting as a bartender on March 24th of 2019, and today he will be representing the defendant. Now, members of the jury, Jessica Marks was a teenager. She was in college, hardworking, but she made a mistake. And teenagers make mistakes, and there are laws to protect them because of that. Because the law recognizes teenagers make mistakes, the state of California has a Dram Shop Act. This makes bars liable for accidents or injuries caused by over-serving. Pursuant to wrongful death laws, any licensed person who serves an obviously intoxicated minor is responsible if that person is injured or dies, and the alcohol was a proximate cause of the accident. Now today, the law recognizes establishments like Sunny's Rooftop Bar, but today you will hear Sunny's Rooftop Bar didn't recognize that law. Throughout today's trial, we, the plaintiff, hold the burden of proof. We have to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that it is because that at Sunny's bar, Jessica Marks was served when she was obviously intoxicated that she got into her car accident. Now, to put that simply, we must prove to you it is more likely than not the defendant served her when she was obviously intoxicated, and because of that, she passed away. We will meet this burden today. To meet our burden, we will call Morgan Levin to the stand. Morgan Levin was with Jessica Marks that evening, and she will tell you throughout the night, Jessica Marks got more and more intoxicated. It was obvious to Morgan Levin that Jessica Marks was intoxicated. The defendant saw the same signs Jessica Marks did. The defendant saw the same signs that Morgan Levin did, but they turned a blind eye. Today, Sunny Mehta will tell you about the traits of intoxication that he's trained to look for. He'll tell you about how he is trained to detect these traits and to cut someone off once they show them. So members of the jury, why could a college student recognize these traits before a trained professional could? She couldn't. The defendant saw those signs, but they continued to serve Jessica Marks. They turned a blind eye. At the end of today's trial, I will come forward to you again and ask you to find the defendant liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Winn. Would defendants like to present their opening statement now?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
She controlled her choices. Jessica Marks is standing in front of her car door. She's got her keys in her right hand and she pauses. She remembers that she's been drinking with a friend, but she tells herself she's okay to drive. And she gets in that car and she gets where she's going. Sunny's Rooftop Bar in Malibu. Members of the jury, you'll learn today that before Miss Marks ever steps foot in Sunny's rooftop bar. Before they serve her so much as a drop of alcohol, Miss Marks makes the choice to drink and drive. When she gets to that bar, she makes a set of similar choices. She knows she's underage, but she chooses to drink. Her friend offers her a ride home in an Uber, but she chooses not to take it. At the end of that night, she chooses to drink and she chooses to drive. But this time, when she gets in her car, she doesn't make it. Miss Marks is dead. Good afternoon, members of the jury. My name is Jackson Kunde. I'm an attorney on behalf of Sunny's Rooftop Bar. Now, before I say anything else, I want to say this. Miss Marks's death is a tragedy. A young woman lost her life when she shouldn't have. But nothing that happens in today's trial can change that. Members of the jury, you're here today to assign responsibility, liability for Miss Marks's death. Now, both parties have agreed today that Miss Marks was a minor at the time. So the plaintiff has to prove to you two things: that Miss Marks was served while obviously intoxicated, and that over-serving contributed to her death. But they won't be able to. Today, you'll hear from the owner of Sunny's Rooftop Bar, Sunny Mehta. And she'll tell you, Miss Marks was served a reasonable number of drinks, and that she didn't exhibit the symptoms of obvious intoxication. And you won't just have to take her word for it. You'll see a receipt of what they ordered that night. You'll hear that none of the other customers in that bar were concerned for Miss Marks. Today, the defense has also raised what's called an affirmative defense. That means we'll prove in part that Miss Marks contributed to her own death. And to do that, we're going to ask you to look at Miss Marks's choices. The choices she made before she went to the bar, the choices she made at the bar, and the choices she made after. Members of the jury, as devastating as it is, Miss Marks controlled those choices, and it was those choices that contributed to her death. At the end of today's trial, I'll ask you to find Sunny's Rooftop Bar not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kunde. Everyone, at this time, we can go ahead and switch to gallery view so we can proceed with the witness examinations. And plaintiff, when you're ready, you may call your your witness.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the plaintiff calls Morgan Levin to the stand. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Morgan Levin, and I'm a UCLA student.
Now, Ms. Levin, I'd like to talk about why you're here today. Did you know Jessica Marks?
Of course I did. Jess and I were friends since middle school. She was just one of those people, everybody loved her.
No. Did Jessica Marks go to UCLA with you?
No, unfortunately, she decided to stay in Pennsylvania.
Now, when was the last time you've seen Miss Marks?
I last saw her, she came to visit me for spring break, and we went out to this bar and she crashed her car. I watched it happen.
Now, Miss Levin, I understand that this can be hard for you. But what were your plans for while Jessica Marks was visiting?
We just went to sightseeing in LA. We went to Disneyland. We went to the Getty. We even went to the beach.
Now, where was Jessica Marks staying?
She was at an Airbnb she'd rented.
Were you with her on March 24th, 2019?
Yes, I was, at least for part of it.
Now, when did you first see her on that day?
It was around 6 o'clock, and she came and picked me up at my dorm.
Now, at that time, did she tell you she had been drinking earlier that day?
No, she was sober.
Now, at that time, where did you and Jessica go?
We went back to her Airbnb. We hung out, listened to some music.
Have you ever seen Jessica Marks drunk before?
Yeah, I have. We used to party a little bit in high school, so I saw her drink there.
Did she look drunk at the time of picking you up?
No, she was completely sober.
Now, where did the two of you go when she picked you up?
We went back to her Airbnb.
And how far away was that Airbnb?
It was 10, maybe 15 minutes away from my dorm.
Now, what did you do while you were there?
We just hung out. We were kind of chilling. I had a stressful day, listened to some music. We even had a glass or two of wine.
Now, did you take any pictures or videos at the Airbnb?
Yes, well, I remember Jess did. She had some video on her Twitter.
Would you recognize that video if I were to show it to you?
Yes, I would.
Do you recognize this video?
Yes, that's the video Jess posted to Twitter at her Airbnb.
Is it a fair and accurate depiction of that video?
Yes, from what I can see, it is.
Has it been changed or altered in any way since you last saw it?
No, it hasn't.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to admit what has been previously marked as Exhibit 6.
Any objections from the defense?
Without objection, Your Honor.
Then the exhibit is admitted.
Ms. McDougall, can we please play this video at this time?
I'm sorry, I can't hear what she's saying.
Yeah, Ms. McDougall, can we play it one more time? This time you unmute.
I'm so sorry, I still can't hear it.
Ms. McDougall, can you take this down at this time? I'll pull up this video for you. Sorry, Your Honor, we're having some brief technical difficulties.
No problem.
Your Honor, can we just have a brief moment of the court's indulgence to fix this technical difficulty?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, can you see this video?
Yes, I can.
And can you hear it now?
Hey guys, we're going out tonight for a night on the town. We're going to a rooftop bar in Hollywood. Should be fun. Go hard or go home. Not ready to go home.
Now, could you hear it okay that time?
Yes, I could.
Now, you mentioned that you've been around Jessica Marks when she has been drinking. Is this what she sounds like when she's drunk?
No, this is what she sounds like when she's sober, when she hasn't had a drop to drink.
Now, I'd like to take you through the night of March 24th, 2019. What did you do after leaving her Airbnb?
We were going to try out this place. It was called Sunny's Rooftop Bar.
Now, what was the layout of that bar?
There was a bar below the stairs, and you had to walk up to get to the rooftop on top.
When you arrived, where did you sit?
We sat on the rooftop. It had the good views and everything.
Now, while you were at the bar, what time did you arrive?
It was around 9 o'clock.
Then what time did you leave?
We left around 11:45.
Did you have anything to drink within that time?
Yes, we did.
Would you recognize the receipt of what you had if I were to show it to you?
Yes, of course.
Do you recognize this receipt?
Yes, I do.
Now, what is it from?
It's from our night at Sunny's. It even says the date on the receipt.
And is it a fair and accurate depiction of that receipt?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to admit what has been previously marked as Exhibit 17 into evidence.
Any objections?
No objections to that, Your Honor.
The exhibit is so admitted.
Now, how many alcoholic drinks are on this receipt?
Well, there's the red wine bottle. That's the decoy. 3 White Claws. They're a hard seltzer. They're 2 beers and 2 green tea shots.
And of them, how many did you drink?
I had a glass of wine, a beer, and a green tea shot.
Of those, and who drank everything else?
Now, I don't exactly remember what Jess drank that night, but we did keep ordering, so I assume it was her.
Now, can you take me through which drinks that was?
Yes, that would be the rest of the wine bottle, the other beer, the 3 White Claws, and 1 of the green tea shots.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Now, Ms. Levin, at any time during the night, did Jessica Marks begin to act intoxicated?
Yeah, I can't pinpoint an exact time, but Jess was just getting drunker and drunker.
And how could you tell?
She had red eyes, her cheeks were flushed, she was slurring her words, she was being loud. There was even a point where she stumbled.
Now, what happened when she stumbled?
We were coming down from the rooftop and she almost fell, except she caught herself on Sunny Meta.
And at that time, did Sunny Meta continue to serve her?
Yes, she did.
Now, later in that evening, did you drive home?
No, I was not getting in a car with Jess in that state. I called an Uber.
Did anything happen once you left?
Yeah, Jess, I watched her drive away and she crossed the center line and crashed her car.
Thank you for your testimony today, Ms. Levin. Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Winn. Cross-examination from the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Levin. Can you hear and see me all right?
Yes, I can.
I want to start by talking about something you mentioned on direct examination. Now, you got to Miss Marks's Airbnb between 7 and 8 o'clock that night, right?
That's right.
Now, when you got there, you saw that there were 2 bottles of wine on the table, correct?
Yes, one was half full. I don't know where they were from or anything though.
Right, but that's a yes to my question. You saw 2 bottles of wine on the table?
Yes, that's right.
And Miss Marks, she actually posted a photo of these 2 bottles of wine, correct?
Yes, she did.
Your Honor, at this time, Ms. Stinson's displaying Exhibit 5 for Ms. Levin. Ms. Levin, this is a fair and accurate depiction of the post Ms. Marks made that night.
Yes, that's right.
This time, we offer Exhibit 5 into evidence.
Any objections?
A yes, Your Honor, as to hearsay.
May I respond to that, Your Honor?
Yes.
First of all, Your Honor, the only hearsay statements here would be Morgan Levin's statements. It's going to be a great night. We believe that Jessica Marks's statements falls under 801D2 as she is a party. And we'd be happy to constructively redact Morgan Levin's statement for Your Honor.
Ms. Winn, your response?
Your Honor, I believe that the party today is actually Jessica Marks's mother, which would make her not the party opponent, as well as she's not available today to be so. However, we would agree in redacting the statements made by Morgan Levin.
May I respond to that, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, Ethel Marks is here today functioning as a legal representative for Jessica Marks. If Ms. Marks wasn't deceased, she'd be able to bring this lawsuit in front of the court herself, and her statements would be allowed to come in. We'd ask that that same liberty be given even though she's deceased, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Yes.
Your Honor, we cannot bring in these statements just because maybe if Jessica Marks was alive, she would have sued. Now, if she was, these statements could be the party opponent. However, she's not, and she's not here today. Therefore, she's not the party opponent, and this hearsay statement cannot be admitted as if she was.
Final response, Your Honor.
Yes.
Again, Your Honor, we've made it clear that Ethel Marks, Miss Marks's mother, is only here acting as a legal representative for Miss Marks. Miss Marks's statements, Jessica Marks's statements, should be granted the same liberties Ethel Marks's statements would be.
Your both sides' arguments are well taken, but I will allow the exhibit to be admitted with the redaction of Ms. Levin's statement.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Stinson, can we redact that statement of Morgan Levin's? Thank you. Now, Ms. Levin, when you got to Miss Marks's Airbnb, she chose to drink, right?
She had a glass or two of wine, yes.
And after that, she drove the two of you to Sonny's rooftop bar, correct?
Yes, that's right.
All right. Now, in opening statements, opposing counsel told us Sonny Mehta saw the signs. Let's talk about if other customers at that bar saw the signs. Miss Levin, you're sitting up on the patio that night at Sonny's rooftop bar,
Yes, we were.
and there were 10 or 12 other customers around you that night, correct?
Yes, there were.
None of those customers ever came up to you and told you Miss Marks should stop drinking, right?
No, but it wasn't their business.
That's a yes to my question. None of those customers ever came up to Miss Marks and told her she should stop drinking.
That's a no. Nobody came up to us.
Miss Levin, you'll agree that you never told Miss Marks she should stop drinking, right?
I never said that, but I did ask if she was okay several times. She wasn't looking good to me.
She wasn't looking good to you, but you never took Miss Marks his keys.
No, if I had known what would happen, I'm sorry. I wish I had done something.
Miss Levin, I want to shift to the decisions Miss Marks made in that bar. She ordered her own drinks, right?
Yes, she did.
No one else was at that bar ordering for her.
No,
Now, when the two of you left the bar that night, you took an Uber home, correct?
yeah, Jess was too drunk to drive. I didn't feel comfortable getting in a car with her.
Right, you're telling us she was too drunk to drive. You told her to get in the car with you, right?
Yeah.
But she refused, correct?
Yeah, she did.
She told you that she was fine, correct?
Yes, I should have just grabbed her and thrown her in there, but I didn't.
Miss Levin, she told you she'd gotten pretty good at driving on a big night,
Yes, she did.
and she got in her car, correct?
That's right.
So in the choice between taking an Uber home with you, she drove.
She did. She did try.
Thank you for your testimony today, Miss Levin. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Levin, you may be excused.
Thank you.
Is the defense ready to call their witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense calls Sonny Mehta to the witness stand.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Miss Mehta.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the court?
Hi, my name is Sonny Mehta.
And what do you do for a living, Miss Mehta?
Well, currently my husband Jeff and I are planning to move over to the French countryside, so actually not too much at the moment.
Miss Mehta, why are you here testifying today?
I'm here. I used to own a bar called Sonny's Rooftop Bar, and one of my customers a few years ago came to my bar and then got in an accident and passed away.
Miss Mehta, can you tell us what that customer's name was?
Her name was Jessica Marks.
I want to talk about Miss Marks today. When did you first meet her?
It was March 24th, 2019. She came into my bar around 9 p.m. that night.
Was anyone else with her when she walked into your bar?
Yes, she was there with her friend, Morgan Levin.
And who took their orders?
I did. I loved interacting with my customers at every opportunity.
I want to talk about what the two of them drank that night. Ms. Denson, can we get Exhibit 17 up? This is already in evidence. Looking at this receipt, what did the two of them order?
A bottle of wine, some chips and guac, and about 7 individual drinks.
And how many of those drinks did Miss Marks order?
It was about 4 or 5.
4 or 5 drinks. How long was she at your bar for?
It was just under 3 hours. They were there for a while.
5 drinks over the course of 3 hours. How many drinks per hour would you say that is?
Probably 1 to 2 per hour, not a lot by any means.
All right. I want to shift to something that Ms. Levin mentioned on direct today. Were you here in court?
Yes, I was.
Did you hear her say that Miss Marks stumbled that night?
I did hear her say that.
To your knowledge, did that ever happen, Miss Mehta?
No, goodness, I certainly never saw anything like that.
Well, let me ask, was Miss Levin drinking that night?
She was. They both were.
Miss Mehta, were you drinking that night?
No, of course not. I was working. I don't mix drinks and work.
Let's talk about whether or not Miss Marks was intoxicated in your bar. Miss Mehta, do people drink in your bar?
Of course, we would have gone out of business fairly quickly if they didn't.
And when someone's had too much to drink, how do you recognize that?
Well, I look for common symptoms and signs, and I trust my intuition. I look for if they're stumbling, if they're getting loud and slurry, if they're not making a lot of sense, or just having trouble with regular, easy tasks.
Miss Mehta, do you have any official training to identify those symptoms of intoxication?
I do, yes. I received training on those signs as part of becoming a bartender. It's required by law.
Now, when you recognize that one of your customers has had too much to drink, what do?
I cut them off immediately.
Let me ask, did you cut Miss Marks off that night?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
I didn't need to. I never saw any of those signs. No slurring, no red eyes, nothing.
Miss Mehta, do you know what happened when Miss Marks left your bar that night?
I do.
When she left and walked out of your doors, were you at all concerned for her safety?
No, I wasn't. I'd been checking on the signs. I was watching them as they were leaving. She never showed anything that made me feel concerned for her.
Thank you, Miss Mehta. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Kunde. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Miss Mehta. My name is Johnny Winn.
Good afternoon.
Now, on direct examination, you stated that you didn't see anyone trip down your stairs in the way Morgan Levin said Jessica Marks did, right?
Miss Jessica never tripped down those stairs, no.
Correct, but you said that you've never seen anyone do that, didn't you?
Never at my bar, do you mean?
Correct, yes.
No, I've seen that before. I just didn't see it in Jessica. That's all I meant.
Okay, Miss Levin, but it's true that your parents purchased you the space for Sunny's Rooftop Bar in February of 2017, correct?
That is true. My parents have worked in the tech industry, and they wanted me to get some worthwhile career experience.
Now, you're trained to work in a bar, aren't you?
Yes, of course.
You take that training seriously?
Yes, absolutely.
You take customer safety seriously?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to talk about how seriously you take those things. Now, one night in 2018, a customer fell and broke his leg, right?
That's true, yes.
And that customer was underage, wasn't he?
That is true.
But you served him alcohol anyway, right?
I didn't know. If I had known, I wouldn't have done that, of course.
As a compensation for this accident, Your bar knowingly offered to order this person free margaritas for the rest of the summer, didn't they?
It was a bit of a peace offering of sorts.
But that was a yes to my question. You offered this underage patron free margaritas.
Yeah, I mean, we would have just given them something not alcoholic if he'd actually come back.
Okay, Miss Mehta. Now you remember March 24th of 2019?
I do, yes.
Jessica Marks came into your bar that evening, didn't she?
She did.
And now in preparation for today's case, you were shown the ID Jessica used that evening, weren't you?
I was, yes.
And you would recognize that ID if I were to show it to you, correct?
I would recall it, yes.
Now, you recognize this ID.
I do.
Now, you recognize this ID to be the same one that they showed you in your deposition.
Yes, that's correct.
And it hasn't been changed or altered in any way since you were shown it at your deposition?
Not that I can tell, no.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to admit what has been previously marked as Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Any objections?
Yes, Your Honor, we'd object under 403 that this evidence is more prejudicial than probative, may be heard.
Yes.
Your Honor, both parties have agreed today pursuant to pretrial order 14 that Ms. Marks was a minor at that time, that she was drinking in that bar illegally. Offering this evidence further that she was a minor only serves to prejudice the jury against Ms. Mehta, and thus it's barred under 403.
Ms. Winn, do you have a response?
Yes, Your Honor. By this witness not recognizing this ID and maybe not checking it to be fake, Your Honor, we're not bringing this for the fact that she necessarily was a minor. That we agree is stipulated today. However, it's going towards the fact that if this witness didn't recognize that ID from March 24th of 2019, that's going to show that maybe she wasn't paying the closest attention to the law. Therefore, she may have also overserved Jessica Marks when she was obviously intoxicated.
May I respond to that, Your Honor?
Sure.
Then, Your Honor, it seems they're using this for character purposes to prove that because Ms. Mehta doesn't know one area of the law, they wouldn't know to stop serving Ms. Marks later that night. Your Honor, that's barred under 404.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Yes.
Your Honor, we're not using this for the fact that she didn't know to not serve Jessica Marks when she was obviously intoxicated. I stated that we're using this for the fact that because she may have not checked this ID, she may have just been paying less attention to the law. And that is not improper character evidence, as we're stating it simply for the fact that it was a negligence of the law, which is extremely probative today.
I think it's iffy, but I'll let it in.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, you don't remember checking this ID on March 24th of 2019, do you?
I don't have a clear memory of that specifically. It was a few years ago now.
But you recognize this is obviously a fake ID, isn't it?
I can tell, yes.
You can recognize that in 1, maybe 2 seconds.
I can see that quickly, yeah.
And in that time, you're even able to recognize that it's a bad fake ID, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I've seen a lot of IDs in my time. I know what they look like.
But Miss Mehta, it's true. Even though you say it's a bad fake ID, your establishment still served her alcohol?
I guess someone did. I don't remember exactly how it went down with the ID or who checked it, but
That was a yes to my question, that you served this girl with a bad fake ID alcohol?
I guess so. I don't remember how that ID thing went down, but apparently, yes.
You know how to check IDs from your training, don't you?
I do.
And on March 24th of 2019, you and Frankfurt Johnson were the only 2 bartenders working that evening, weren't you?
That's correct.
Frankfurt Johnson never showed you his certificate of completing that training?
He didn't need to. I trusted that he'd done it.
Right, you just trusted him.
You say that like it's a bad thing. Frankfurt was always very reliable.
Okay, now at around 9 p.m. on March 24th, 2019, Jessica Marks and Morgan Levin entered your bar, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
At this time, you didn't notice her being obviously intoxicated.
No.
Now, you would recognize a video of Miss Marks at your bar from that evening if I were to show it to you.
I might. I didn't see her taking any videos, so I'm not sure.
Okay, Miss McDougal, can we pull that up anyways? Now, do you recognize this video from your deposition?
I recognize I've seen it at the deposition, yeah.
Right. Now, it's a fair and accurate depiction of that video you were shown.
I mean, it's the same video as shown earlier, but
Doesn't appear to have been changed or altered in any way.
doesn't look like that.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to admit what has been previously marked as Exhibit 10 into evidence.
Any
There-
objections?
Yes, Your Honor, there's a foundation issue here. Opposing counsel hasn't laid the foundation as to how this video was taken, who took it, or whether or not this is even Ms. Mehta's bar.
Agreed. Can you lay some more foundation, Ms. Winn?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Mehta, you agree that the background of this video appears to be at your bar,
Yes, that is my bar.
and the girl in the video is Jessica Marks.
It was, yeah.
Now, it's true that from where the video was taken, it looks like it was where Morgan Levin was seated, doesn't it?
It kind of looks like that. It's hard to tell.
Now, Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to admit what has been previously marked as Exhibit 10.
Any objections?
With that foundation, we have no objection, Your Honor.
Okay, this exhibit is a
Now, Ms. McDougal, can we please play that video?
Hi everyone, Morgan and I are in Hollywood. We're at a bar. It's kind of like a Philly bar, except everything is really, really expensive. $10 for a seltzer. And everyone here wants to be a model or an actress. You know, I'd like to thank the Academy. Mom and Dad, you've inspired me. Okay, well, go big or go home.
Now, Ms. Mehta, could you hear that video okay?
I could, yes.
It's true that you weren't present while taking this video, right?
I never saw that video being made. I mean, Miss Marks didn't even look anything like that night.
And now, your testimony today is that Jessica Marks never appeared that way while you were around her, right?
She never appeared that way at all. No, not as far as I could see or tell.
And you never cut her off, did you?
I never needed to. I mean, she never showed any symptoms. She was fine all night.
Thank you, Ms. Mehta, and thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Anything further for Ms. Mehta?
Brief redirect, Your Honor.
Sure, go ahead.
Ms. Mehta, opposing counsel just showed you a video of Miss Marks in your bar. I want to talk about that. Did you see that video being filmed?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever see that behavior from Miss Marks in your bar?
Not once. No, of course not.
Based on what you did see, did you think Miss Marks was intoxicated?
I mean, that video, maybe she looks buzzed, but not, I mean, crazy intoxicated or anything.
And based on what you saw outside of that video, did you think she was intoxicated?
No, not even close.
Thank you, Ms. Mehta. Your Honor, I have no further questions. Pending no recross, may Ms. Mehta be excused?
Yes, she may be excused.
And with that, Your Honor, the defense rests their case.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and proceed into closing arguments. Everyone should switch back to speaker view. And now we can go ahead and complete the witness portions of our ballot since the examinations are over. And Ms. Winn, you may proceed whenever you are ready.
The defendant saw the signs, and they turned a blind eye. Today, you heard on March 24th of 2019, Jessica Marks was visiting her best friend Morgan Levin over spring break. It was her last night, So they went to Sunny's rooftop bar. At this bar, Jessica Marks was served alcohol, despite the fact that she was underage. And now later that evening, Jessica Marks drove her car off the highway. Members of the jury, Jessica Marks made a mistake on March 24th of 2019. As the plaintiff, we are not here to tell you she did absolutely nothing wrong and this is 100% the defendant's fault. But we don't have to prove that to you today. We don't have to prove to you that this was 100% the defendant's fault. We just have to prove it's more likely and than not that it was the defendant's. Now, Jessica Marks made a mistake, but that's what teenagers do. Laws are put into place for teenagers' safety. In today's case, the Dram Shop Act in California, it was put into place to protect teenagers. That law says that a bar who serves an obviously intoxicated minor is responsible for their death. And that is exactly what we're dealing with today. You watched that video of Jessica Marks. You heard Sunny Mehta say that she's trained in detecting traits of intoxication, but you also heard Morgan Levin say she could tell Jessica Marks was intoxicated. You heard Morgan Levin say that Jessica Marks had bloodshot eyes. She smelled like alcohol. Now, members of the jury, her best friend could tell she was obviously intoxicated. So why couldn't a trained professional? The defendant could. The defendant could tell Jessica Marks was obviously intoxicated, but they chose to turn a blind eye. There's no question that today's case is a tragedy, and nobody disputes the fact Jessica Marks was a minor. There's no question she wrecked her car, but when you go into the deliberation room today, you're going to have to decide whether or not we met our burden. Was Jessica Marks obviously intoxicated? Morgan Levin told you the answer was yes. You saw the signs, you watched the video, heard that she tripped down the stairs right into the bartender. Now, members of the jury, that's common sense. It's common sense that if she was sober, that wouldn't have happened. If it's apparent to a reasonable person, it should be apparent to a trained one as well. But Sunny's bar kept serving her anyways, despite noticing those traits and knowing how much she drank. She was obviously intoxicated because the defendant served her. And that is why her car swerved off the highway. Now, today, Sunny Mehta told you about her training, told you about the fact that she is trained to detect if an ID is fake. Then how come today, in 2 seconds, she recognized that Jessica Marks's was a bad fake ID, but on the evening in question, she didn't recognize that at all? If the bartenders didn't look at her ID for long enough to recognize that it was fake, then they certainly didn't look at Jessica Marks for long enough to realize she was obviously intoxicated, but that was their job. That's the law. Now, members of the jury, let's look at these facts you've been shown today to make this a little bit easier. Members of the jury, Jessica Marks drove to Sunny's rooftop bar, and that was her decision. We anticipate if she expected it to be a late night full of drinking, she wouldn't have drove 45 minutes to a bar, or she wouldn't have driven at all. But then the bartender served her alcohol. Despite her being underage, she ended up getting drunk, and even after she did, the bartenders never stopped her from drinking. They didn't follow over-serving laws. Should the defendant have been able to tell Jessica Marks was obviously intoxicated? Today you heard that she had impaired judgment. She had bloodshot eyes. She smelled like alcohol, was loud, hard to understand, and she had poor motor skills. Now, members of the jury, you don't have to hear those things from me and just simply believe them. And today, Jessica Marks told you that Jessica Marks told Morgan Levin told Jessica Marks that she shouldn't have driven home, but she chose to. Now, members of the jury, it's common sense her judgment was impaired. It's common sense because if it wasn't, she wouldn't have driven home. Morgan Levin told you about her bloodshot eyes and about how she smelled like alcohol. You saw her be loud, hard to understand, and have poor motor skills. Now, members of the jury, those traits make her obviously intoxicated. Now, members of the jury, I can see these signs and so can you. So could the bartenders. They recognized them and chose to turn a blind eye. Find the defendant liable. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and hear from defense for their closing.
Yes, Your Honor. She controlled her choices. Jessica Marks is standing outside of Sonny's rooftop bar. There's an Uber in front of her, but she won't get in. She tells her friend that she's fine, that she's gotten pretty good at driving on a big night. Members of the jury, those are the words of someone in control. And Miss Marks, she makes the last of a series of choices. She turns away from that Uber, she gets in her car, and she drives. She controlled those choices, and it was those choices that contributed to her death. Jury, let's take a step back. Because before you consider whether or not Miss Marks contributed to her own death, we have to ask, did the plaintiff meet their burden? And today they had to prove to you two things. Miss Marks was served while obviously intoxicated. Now that over-serving contributed to her death. But they weren't able to. Today you heard from Sonny Mehta, the owner of Sonny's Rooftop Bar, someone who's been trained to identify dangerous symptoms of intoxication. Someone who sees obviously intoxicated people in her bar all the time. And she told you, Miss Marks didn't exhibit any of the symptoms of intoxication. And the plaintiff, they showed you a video today. They told you that Miss Marks was acting the same way in this video as she was in front of bar employees. Well, let's consider that. You heard today on the direct examination of Miss Mehta, she wasn't around when that video was filmed. She never saw that video being filmed. That she didn't see any of the behavior that was in this video. Members of the jury, Miss Marks was a minor in that bar, fully aware she was drinking there illegally. Wouldn't she have every reason to conceal her intoxication from bar employees? Today, the plaintiff has the burden. They have to prove by the preponderance of the evidence that the defendant is responsible, that Sonny's Rooftop Bar is responsible for Miss Marks' death. And today, over and over again, they told you that Miss Mehta turned a blind eye. But what they couldn't do is tell you why. Miss Mehta had no reason to see an obviously intoxicated person in her bar and do nothing about it. The plaintiff couldn't bring you a single reason that the defendant would turn, that Sonny's Rooftop Bar would turn a blind eye. That's not meeting their burden. Members of the jury, in hindsight, it's easy to say that Miss Marks wasn't fit to drive. We know that now. But to the people that saw her that night, not a single one of them, not the other customers, not the Uber driver, not Miss Levin herself, no one thought Miss Marks should be stopped. I apologize, Your Honor. I think I lost the Zoom for a second.
I did too. It must have happened to everyone. Sorry.
All right.
Bruce.
Yeah, same for me.
May I continue, Your Honor?
Yes.
Not a single person who saw Miss Marks that night, not the other customers, not the Uber driver, not Miss Levin herself. No one thought Miss Marks should be stopped from driving. They haven't met their burden. And if you agree, your assessment stops here. Sonny's Rooftop Bar, we're not liable. For a moment, say you disagree. Then we're going to ask you to consider whether or not Miss Marks contributed to her own death. And to do that, we want you to look not just at the 3 hours Miss Marks was at that bar, but at the full picture. Consider her choices before she got to the bar, when she was at that bar, and her choices when she left. Let's start here. You heard today that before Miss Marks ever stepped foot in Sonny's Rooftop Bar, before they ever served her so much as a drop of alcohol, Miss Marks made the choice to drink and drive. Once she gets to the bar, she knows she's underage, but she still chooses to drink. When she leaves the bar that night, she's presented with a final choice. Take an Uber home with a friend or drive herself. She chose to drive. She controlled those choices. Members of the jury, no one's saying Miss Marks is a bad person. We agree with the plaintiff. She was a teenager. She lost her life when she shouldn't have. But as the plaintiff told you today, Miss Marks made a mistake. That was her mistake. And the devastation we feel surrounding that mistake, it can't be a reason to turn from the truth. That it was Miss Marks's mistake, not Sonny's Rooftop Bar. Find Sonny's Rooftop Bar not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kunde. Does plaintiff have a rebuttal or?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes.
Opposing counsel just told you she controlled her choices. Now, we agree Jessica Marks made decisions that evening, but so did the defendant. The defendant's choices broke the Dram Shop Act law. He served an obviously intoxicated patron, and that customer was a minor. Members of the jury, when they did so, they were turning a blind eye to the signs you saw today, to the signs of intoxication. Find the defendant liable. Thank you.
Thank you to both parties. The judges are now going to complete our ballots and submit them, and I'll ask everyone to stay on until we've done that portion before we can proceed into comments.